Yes, friends, we continue from where we left off. We had imported our model. Now we will continue by looking at the visualization elements. I want to give a hint below. Look here, the black screen, friends, this black screen and number in the import window. Let's say when you press import, it goes away, or you are in the media window, you want to work in full screen, you finished your work, this window you pressed closes, friends. It's an ideal situation for working in full screen. Now, in our ambience menu, we had our dynamic sky and tasks. We will take different renders from both, friends, because the effect given by dynamic sky is different from the effect given by HDR. But before that, let's take our image like this. From the part labeled North Offset, friends, you can change the position of the sun by altering the north and south. We will do curtains and different operations inside. Before that, you can start from wherever you want to start. But starting with the textures would be appropriate. Look at the SketchUp file. I changed the colors of these parts, because when we apply the concrete coating here, the entire area has the same texture. Therefore, it's beneficial to change it. Now, regarding coating and texture, if you want to change these textures, we mentioned before that we can download them from both the material section and the Megascan library. Friends, for example, I came to the surface section. Let's look at the parts I lost here. Look, here is different concrete. The coatings are available. If you want to make concrete, you perform this operation by dragging and dropping it like this. Friends, you can choose whichever looks good to your eye, whichever textures are compatible. Look, like this, aged. It looks like an old building structure, like a moldy structure. This looks a bit different. You can change these and perform different operations. Look, it seems a bit better. Now, after deciding on this, let's say we decided on this one. Let's do something like this. Here, let it stand differently. Here, let it look more like concrete blocks, friends. We can perform an operation like this here. There can be a different texture type for the walking path here, or there are different varieties here. I won't spend too much time on these, friends, because this is a topic that takes time and requires a lot of effort. Friends, because you need to constantly work on and tweak it. Let's see what else is there. There might be a type of wood I can use here. Let's see how something like this will look. No, this won't work. It could be something a bit lighter. Do it this way. I'm typing wood planks. Are there any textures I downloaded here? I'm checking, friends. No, this won't work either. This might work. I chose this because it has a slightly lighter tone. Yes, it looks nicer. This could work. Yes, let's keep this for now. I'll use the same here, and I'm not eliminating it because it's vertical, friends. That's... might have a slight metal effect here. I went from the Liperi section to metal, came to the metal section, and selected this part like this. This and that texture have remained the same, friends. That's why I won't touch the texture there at all, meaning I added metal here. Here, it was metal. And we might have an effect. Here, there's the same effect out below, which leaves a different impression. Below, there's a slightly rough effect like this. We can reduce the impact a bit more by covering and darkening their reflections like this. Let it be like this. These are their look. Aluminum effects. The process you will do here, friends, is the continuous drop method. There is no other process. By changing the textures with the continuous drop method, I am dropping onto the textures, as you can see. Other than that, we don't have much of an advantage or disadvantage. If you want these to be darker, you can already change the colors from here. Look, the color changes. From here, you can do this with the colors named Look Here. There is a spot left at the back with a different color. It could be like this. Diving levers, for example, when you select any coating, you can take this coating and drop it onto that. Friends, it will give the same effect there. It's enough to activate it. I actually wanted it dark here. This part has remained lighter. What can we use? There. Could it be a slightly wavy effect? I looked at it like this. No, these won't look good either. There was galvanized. It says a bit more silver. It could be a bit darker. Yes, we went a bit darker like this. Slightly a darker color underneath the system. Yes, look, it has changed here. Yes, such a dark color actually combines the contrast between this and it unites them, friends. Let's take a look. Press the render button, see how it looks. I can say it doesn't look bad at the moment. Of course, we will embellish it further. While doing these, we first started with the building. Since we are continuing in a certain way, let this section have the effects of the building, friends. Yes. Now there's something like this. For example, here we need to break the monotony. Look, there is a lot of concrete effect. For example, I showed the library, you go to decals from the object section, and I can individually break the monotony here. Friends, how will I do it? Look, we will use these on the asphalt, and these in the asphalt section, because we will go section by section, friends. Because we need to perform a separate process for each section. In this section, we will make the road, then we will make the road again, and then we will make the terrain. We need to proceed by doing each one individually. They have very nice summaries of Twinmotion. We will provide a better view by covering the terrain with trees. Now, look, there are some situations here. For example, let's say there is a situation like this. Now, the dominance of this might be too much in this way, but when you come to the right side, you can reduce the opacity to decrease its dominance a bit. Or you came like this and left it this way. Look, it looks very large, like this. And reducing its opacity will create a nice effect like this. Of course, doing this everywhere, how beneficial is it? Now, there is something like this. For example, let me use a crack like this here, as if it's a descending crack. Of course, in new buildings, you might not use this. But since I need to explain how to strengthen the effect further, I need to show these. Whether you do it or not is up to you. In a different situation, for example, something like this might also happen. You selected this texture with the dropper tool. We had our pollution tool. Look, random pollution tool. You can also use it, but there's no need to find this too much. Friends, the decoys here already provide the necessary effect. This is not very nice. Here, maintenance, various situations are in question. If you think about that passive a bit, you'll achieve a nicer effect. Let's do this depth. Like this. I usually think a bit about that passive because the effect can be a bit too much. Its own effect, friends. That's why I say reduce that passive, subscribe. You can also try it in some places without thinking. Of course, there's something like this, friends. There's a topic I always mention. I always bring these up as well. Your use of the library, your ability to use it, and your speed should actually create a nice effect in visual flexibility. It will enable you to do so. Therefore, when doing such tasks, try to create different works and effects using trial and error in small projects before moving on to the main project. You will get beautiful images. Let's do it like this one too. Yes, it fits here. It actually turned out nice. Let's do it like this. It looks a bit neglected, but I think it will leave a nice effect for our realism. Yes. When we look at it like this, I look at it like this, we can create with different effects here. This is somewhat a personal matter. You know, it's a matter of whether you use it or not, friends. If you want, you don't have to use it. Honestly, if the texture you are using reaches a sufficient level of dirtiness, there's no need to use it much. But I like it. I think it leaves a nice effect in terms of impact. I did it like this and left it, friends. As you can see, like this. There are also these in terms of texture. Look, here. There are stains like this, for example. Look, I left it here. You can think of this stain as if a stain remained after the rain by reducing its opacity, like a stain from below. Or you can, for example, leave these at this corner point and progress them as parts accumulated at the corner point. This could be like this. You can enlarge the number like this. You can make that pastry smaller like this. You can create very nice effects here. Friends, this is nice. This is a part I like. And the girl and girls, you can create very nice effects. It requires a lot of effort. Now, in the training sets, we usually work quickly on projects that are free. But in the training sets, it's a bit more like this. In such situations, it's necessary to move quickly in terms of time. Therefore, while you're working on this, you can create better effects by working in different ways than the methods we show. Since we go through some things quickly, friends, a bit, some things might be overlooked. Let me leave it like this. I'm making this an instance. Again, like this. I left it like this. Yes. Let it be a bit more here. You can adjust its size and strength generally from here, friends. Look, I can adjust its size from here. As you wish. You can adapt to the environment. In a part with such a value, as if there is a damage there. Yes. And at the same time, you can use graffiti. There are graffitis. Look, for example, let's say a graffiti like this. Let's lower the opacity like this. It will leave a different effect. Here, it could be a donut graffiti like this. Let's lower the opacity like this. The donut doesn't seem to fit here. Let's delete this. It could have an effect as if there is a hidden camera like this. Like this. I'm trying to find something that fits, but of course I don't want to spend too much time on these. For example, an area where children can play. Imagine an area like this. Think of it as such an area. You can lower the opacity again. Things we will do for the building. And there are spotlights. We will go to the spotlights. Currently, the pollution situation doesn't look too bad, friends. When we make it rainy in a bit, it will fit with our ambiance. Let's come. Here again. There are cracks on the road related to the asphalt. They also look nice. Let's do it like this here. Like this. We can leave very nice meats. Here. You have the chance to use them on top of each other. So more than one decal can be used. Friends. When we look at it like this, when we render it, there will be such an effect. Of course, we will also add curtains and other elements inside. Friends, let's add them as well. It will look nice. At least in this section, we will have completed our operations related to the building. Now, in the coding section, there is clear glass under the glass part. Look. It says blue. If you want it slightly blue, this could be an option. If you want the image to be a bit more bluish, of the glass. Let's do it like this. Look, if you want it to be like this, a bit darker, it will be nice in terms of light and dark contrast. I had skipped over here, but this came up. This opacity part was reduced a bit. Something like that happened. Anyway, let it stay. Here, from the sketch section, I had downloaded a coating. This will do the job for us. Friends, let's do it this way. I will show you one. I won't take much of your time. You can also download this curtain covering or curtain model one by one like this. Look, after downloading the curtain, bring it here at 90 degrees. Here, friends, like this. Bring it like this and press it right to the bottom. And bring its texture like this. Make sure they are all instances. It's important that they are instances because it won't lag when they are. After coming here, go to the library. From the material section, go to the fabric section here. Here, any covering, for example, this one could work. Let's try one to see how it looks. Yes, it looks quite nice. Look, when viewed like this, let's also take a look from the outside. It doesn't look bad for now. It could be something a bit whiter. We can change the color of the texture. Actually, it looks like tulle. It looks like a slightly stiff type, but let's see. I mean, this is nice for now. Let's take it with the dropper, change it and see how it looks. We can adjust these settings. Yes. Let's make it spread a bit more like this. It says effect follow. Look, let's increase the intensity from here, a bit more like this. There's the color part. Look, I'm opening it a bit more towards white. This is called tint. Let it be more like a white tulle curtain inside, because we will add a bit more light, friends. I want that light to be visible. That's why I opened it a bit more. This is the process. It looks nice for now. I will now place these one by one. I don't want to take too much time here. Later, in the rendering part, by wrapping a light slightly around these inner parts, we will create a nicer effect. Let's come here for a moment. For example, let's go to take picture frame from here. 3. Let's save this from the pad. Friends, I say save. Let's call it training file. Be careful to use Turkish characters. Do not use Turkish characters in both SketchUp file and Twinmotion file. Friends, what happened? Did I close this? Yes? Let's say open region file. Let's open it. Once again, Turkish characters cause problems. Friends, so be careful not to use Turkish characters. When you come to the media section, you can output from this with the plus icon. We are currently in the ambience section. Look, I am in the ambience menu. When I go to pairs, this is the kind of image I get. Let's take one. Let's see. This diagnosis of this one. Let's do it like this, friends. Look, this is the process. When you press the increase button inside this, you can adjust both with HDR and in the normal section with ambience. When you come to dynamic sky from here, it appears like this. You say update this. You can switch between the HDR and ambience menu both here and here in this way. Of course, we will completely change these, friends. We will completely change the asphalt, the effect, and the HDR here. I did these just to show the change. All the settings you have made here are done. They are saved, friends. You can render them from any angle you want later.